Welcome to another Race Driver Coach Show. This is Coach Enzo talking to race drivers about something that is absolutely paramount if you want to be a top race driver, and that is your performance in qualifying. Now, I know we've spoken about this before in different videos, but today I want to come from a different angle and maybe say something that could be a game changer for you, because you know how to qualify, you know how to drive quickly, your team shows you this is how to brake, this is how to put the power on, this is the race line you should be on, here's some videos. They're really pleading with you. It's like, right, you've got all the information. Knowledge isn't normally a problem. The real problem comes from you as a race driver driving in a particular way through each corner in qualifying or in the race, it doesn't matter, just when you want to be at your best and you want to execute a good lap, you're driving in a way that makes it nearly impossible to get the best out of yourself, out of the car, out of the tyre, out of the track, out of the conditions, everything. And I'm going to give you a very simple rule that can be, I promise you, something that puts you onto a different level, makes you think like a more experienced driver would, like somebody who's trying to perfect their craft. These videos are all about that. I'm giving you tips from the very best, like from what I've learned over the last 26 years of coaching, to give you some kind of insight and epiphany so you can improve your own racing, right, and in life. This is another one. And the one rule, actually, before I get into the rule, this was the question that motivated me to do this video for you today. I'll call you Fred, but you know who you are. You emailed me saying this. Hi Enzo, I'm underperforming in qualifying. I keep overdriving, underdriving, and just being scrappy every time it gets to that qualifying session. How do you help drivers in this situation? It comes to no surprise that if you want to achieve the goals you've got in racing, you've got to be good at qualifying. You've got to have an approach that helps you execute when you need to. And we could go deep. We could go deep about, okay, is this something about self-belief? Is it the past, the failures you've had? You're worried about cash, money, showing people where you're at, and that's confusing you and making you rush things? Yes, I know. There's a lot going on here, of course, and we've spoken about that in the past. Today, I really want to hit just one rule, give you a rule to live by that can change your internal coding, because we need to create the mind. As you know, this is what I teach, especially with base mental fitness. We need to create a mind that is a race driver's mind. That means it's coded in a particular way that allows it to perform as it needs to, because you've got to be quite unique, a bit like a fighter pilot. You've got to be quite unique mentally to be able to thrive in a car, on a bike, whatever it is you race at speed. It's different. So we need to have inner rules. Our matrix needs to be set up so it is coded in a way that helps us perform as a race driver should. Okay? And this rule I'm sharing with you today can recode you if you live by it. If you set up your test days and your qualifying with this one rule, it can be the single game changer for you. So I want you to take this on, understand what I mean by it, and apply it immediately. Okay, the rule is this. I don't practice until I get it right. I practice until I can't get it wrong. This is used a lot. It's an old adage from sport, but it's not used enough in motorsport. In basketball, you hear them say they're doing shooting hoops, right? They're doing 3-point shots, or they're practicing free throws. Now, if a basketballer was to approach that 3-point shot in a way that they wanted for it to go in better than ever before, they wanted it to go in faster, from a different angle, and they kept doing that each time, you can imagine they'd keep changing, keep trying stuff, keep trying to do it better, and they'd miss a lot. However, if they thought, I want to practice until I can't get it wrong, they wouldn't be putting so much pressure on doing it perfect, doing it better than anyone else, the actual speed of it going in, which is what race drivers do when they come to a corner, which I'll explain in a moment. Instead, they say, right, what's my process? Bounce it 3 times, bounce the ball 3 times, have a very structured arm movement on the way up, and the technique would be the same over and over again. They concentrate more on the foundation of building a great shot, and once they find that, they stick to it. And then they'll find they're getting so many more. They're not all of a sudden changing their elbows out here and changing angles like race drivers do. They get a very secure starting point, and they work the process over and over again until they can repeat it, like with their eyes closed. Same with a tennis serve. Now just imagine race drivers in this scenario. Let's give you an example. Let's look at a track map, and we'll start with an easy one, Brands Hatch Indy. We've only got 4/5 corners here to focus on, so it's quite easy to explain. So turn 1. If I was to approach it like a lot of drivers do when all of a sudden it comes to qualifying, I'll go towards Paddock Hill Bend, which is turn 1, and I'll start to really push the entry. I really want to take as much speed as I can because I've got new tyres and I want to be as fast as I can. What they often do is they go in, they fire it in, the car has a little moment, they make a mistake, they have a terrible exit, or not an optimal exit because they've pushed the entry so hard and they're stressed obviously, and they haven't got the best out of that corner. They've failed to understand what this car wants from them in this particular corner when it matters most in qualifying, and they've just ignored it, and their own intentions and expectations of what they want results-wise has forced them to go in so deep that they've kind of like lost half a tenth or a tenth through the whole corner. Okay, they were world champions going in. Brilliant. They fired it in. Amazing. You were a top score up until the apex, but after then, you couldn't get back to the throttle, could you? Because you took too much speed in. Now, you haven't got the speed up the hill towards turn 2. Congratulations, you just under-delivered in qualifying. This is really common. Or a driver will stress so much that they'll overslow it because they're thinking too much about getting it right and they're nervous and they're not sure about what this new tyre can do, so the knowledge is not there, and it's just messy. You have got to be at your best in qualifying. You know that. That means your expectations of what you need to do and your priorities need to be in place when you're in qualifying. So if I'm to take that rule of, I don't want to keep practicing. In other words, I don't want to keep trying this corner to get it right. I want to keep trying this corner and keep practicing until I can't get it wrong. What that does, it implies to the brain, and the brain usually responds this way, in a way that's more like the basketball throw or the tennis serve. It makes you structure it better. So you say to yourself, or your brain's trying to work out, if I wanted to make sure that I take this corner completely correct every single time, what's the first thing I've got to do? It goes there, the head does, right? So you think, right, I need maybe a brake reference. So I know I can hit that brake reference and brake on that mark, around that sort of mark, every single time. So I know when I approach, the car's going to feel very similar, and I'm going to stand a better chance of getting it in, getting what I want. And in testing, free practice, I'm going to keep taking that brake in later and later until I find the sweet spot, until I start to miss the apex. Then I know I'm nearly there. I've just got to come back a little bit more to get it absolutely perfect. Obviously, conditions change, but you know the feeling of when you're going through that corner, turn 1, Paddock Hill Bend, when you get it right. You just know the feeling because in practice, you've got that down. And remember, in every corner, it's the entry that is the most important thing. The start, the approach, the line, are you wide enough before you start braking? That's what sets up the whole corner. So even though someone says, oh, this corner's got a really important exit, still starts with the entry. So we need to make sure that the entry is secure. And once you've got that, you can then adjust tiny bits, but you can just keep repeating. And if you do that in practice, if you're really focused on, I just want to get it until I can't get it wrong, I want to get this right till I can't get it wrong at all, you'll calm down, you'll be more focused on what the car's telling you, its feedback, and you'll be way more consistent. And then when it goes to quali, you just do the same again. Because you've done it 50 times already in practice, over and over and over again. You're not trying to reinvent the wheel. Okay, now and then you might leave half a tenth on the table going in, but at least you'll know that as you're doing it, if you're going through this process, and you will more likely be closer to your optimal time. Not being this person who's all of a sudden in qualifying trying to brake too late or deep or ask the car too much or ignoring what the car wants. We can't do that because that makes you an emotional mess. We need to keep you focused, confident, and calm in qualifying. Remember this, qualifying should just be repeating what you've already done. And if you can't, it was wet in practice, now it's dry in quali, you've got to visualize as much as you can. Did you test there before with this principle? If so, remember what you did. Look at the data, look at the secure laps and get them in. Visualize when you're in the car. When you're on the actual out lap, you practice. You can't do it full out because the tires are not there. But you say, right, next time I come through this corner, that's my braking marker. This is the kind of feeling I want. And you're kind of visualizing on the go what you want the car to do when you're actually on a push lap. So you're building the lap up, your expectations of how to build each corner as you go. But this is really important. Now, to give you an even better example of this, let's jump to the sim. Now, I might as well use Brands Hatch, and I'm going to use a car that's very sensitive to inputs, the Formula Ford. So what I'm going to do now is run you through Brands Hatch Indy again, might as well, using that as an example, and show you a couple of corners of me building a corner. So practicing until I can't get it wrong, compared to if I overdrive and push and try and be a world champion at every corner like a load of people do when they're nervous in quali. Here we go. Okay, starting at turn 1, which is Paddock Hill Bend. It's a high-speed corner that drops away on the exit. Fantastic corner, one of the best we've got in the UK. Right, let's start off by looking at the data for this corner. 2 different laps. One, the red dotted line, you can see at the top right, the speed trace. The red dotted line is the driver who is not following the principle I'm talking about. The blue solid line is the person who's trying to drive correctly. Now, overall, looks pretty close, and it is. So let's take a look at the onboard. On the left is the person who's charging, on the right is the person who's driving it correctly. So as they go in, driver on the left taking a little bit more speed in and can't get the rotation and has gone wide. From the outside, this is the correct driver and this is the driver who went in a bit too hot. However, they can still carry the speed by going wide and take it all the way to the exit curb and pause it. And you can see the difference in the curb from left to right. So you can see the driver on the right is the clear winner. Okay, turn 2, Druid's Corner. It's a large hairpin at the top of a hill which crests over, so it's all kind of awkward and you go in tighter than you would for the normal hairpin, so it's quite funky. Okay, line the video up again with the shadow, which isn't really good, but it's the same time of day, so don't worry. We fire it in. Driver on the left gets a little bit squirrely on the rear, can't get the front in, but look at that, when I paused it, it looks like it's quicker actually. Maybe it's because they turned right earlier. Check the data. Looking at it, you know what? The driver that's pushing wins 7/100ths just because they took that speed in and it rotated for them. Even though they're wider, they win. So fair enough. It works from time to time. Right, turn 3, Graham Hill Bend. It's a medium speed corner, 3rd-ish gear, and you do need to get a bit of rotation on the entry. Once again, our chappie on the left who keeps pushing it, going in a bit hot, doesn't actually get much rotation when the one on the right is hardly steering at this point because they've created the rotation by braking nice and early, got the car to react as they want so they can get back to the throttle nice and early as well. Let's see who wins this one. Very close, but just about driver on the right. Just remember, corners that need rotation, you've got to do it right. A bit like turn 1, you need to create that through the pedals, and if you're just charging in, it's probably not going to play out for you. And then lastly, turn 5, clearways. It's a huge corner, a big bowl of a corner, using turn 4 to prep it. Looking at the data, actually, if you take a look at the speed, it looks like our driver, who usually overcharges, is a little bit slower before the minimum speed point. But if we look deeper, if you look down at the brake shape, you can see that at the start of the brake, they didn't hit the brake as hard, which actually means they were too quick at the wrong time, which forces the car to the left a little bit more for turn 5 itself because the prep is all ruined and they do more distance. We go all the way to the line and pause it. Boom, driver on the right wins. I think you kind of get it now. If you want to be a top race driver, you have to approach driving as an art. It has to be structured to start with. Each corner has to be structured in a way that's solid so you can repeat. And then you can obviously feel what the car's doing. Because if you're trying different things and you're asking too much of the car, you set up feedback for the engineer or mechanics or for yourself if you're setting your own car up. It's going to be out of whack because you're creating like 2mm more body roll than you need to. You're pitching the car too much because you're too aggressive on the controls. So your feedback isn't accurate enough. However, if you have a structured approach to every corner, and you know that you're driving pretty similar each time, it's going to change and evolve a little bit, but you're pretty similar each time. If the car doesn't react how it did last time or how you want it to, then at least your feedback is precise. So remember, don't practice to get it right. Practice until you can't get it wrong.